guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So we have officially passed the halfway point of 2025 and I cannot believe how quickly this year has gone. Like, it has truly been racing by right in front of my eyes. In fact, the entire decade, the 2020s clearly have somewhere to be because they are racing by as well. But in terms of 2025, because we have reached this point, I thought it'd be a good idea to take a moment to reflect, okay? Take a look back at some of the main releases, both film and television, that we have gotten so far, and have a think about the good, the bad, and the mid out of these releases. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. If that sounds fun to you guys, then of course stay tuned. And as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. And if you enjoy these kinds of videos, I do have a whole playlist diving into what I've been watching, and just like this one, in those videos I talk about multiple different projects and give you guys some speedy reviews on them. And also what you can do if you enjoy this is you can give this video a good old thumbs up to let me and the YouTube algorithm know. Thank you so much. But without further ado guys, let's dive into the good, the bad, and the meh of 2025 so far. So first off, we have the good, and I'm going to be splitting these between the movies and the TV shows, mostly focusing on the projects that I haven't yet reviewed. So we're going to do a speed run of the ones that I already have reviews on. You can go ahead and check out those detailed reviews on my channel, but then we're going to really spotlight the ones that I've missed so far this year. In terms of the excellent films that I have already reviewed, here we have Hard Truths, Flow, Sinners, Thunderbolts, Mission Impossible, Ballerina, How to Train Your Dragon, Elio, 28 Years Later, F1 the Movie, and Superman. So I feel like I've done a pretty decent job, you know, catching up with all of these new releases. I'm gonna pat myself on the back a little bit here. Now let's dive into some of the films that I didn't get a chance to review, starting us off with A Complete Unknown that was directed by James Mangold, and this was the Bob Dylan biopic that had a pretty strong presence during award season earlier this year. It of course stars Timothée Chalamet, who portrays Bob Dylan, and it kind of tells the story of his ascent, you know, to fame and to popularity, how his music, his folk music, was discovered across the country and the world. And overall, it's a pretty standard but very well executed biopic. I did think that Timothée Chalamet gave a really great performance in this film. I believe he won the SAG award, right? And that's when he gave that like famous controversial speech about how he's aiming to be a legend and an icon. So Timmy definitely gave a great performance in this film. In terms of James Mangold's directing, I wouldn't say it was anything extraordinary. Like, I wouldn't say it was anything that kind of blew my mind or anything. He did a very good job. It made for an entertaining film from start to the beginning of the final act, where I started to kind of waver and not care as much anymore. Whilst I think James Mangold was a very good fit for the material, I don't think he did anything revolutionary or mind-blowing with it. This film was very well made. The writing here was pretty good, but overall it was just, you know, standard and pedestrian as musical biopics go. James Mangold didn't reinvent the wheel here. He just polished it up and made it look real shiny and smooth, and allowed Timothée Chalamet to have a stage upon which he can deliver a really strong performance as Bob Dylan. Okay, so next up we have Nickel Boys. Oh my goodness. Nickel Boys was directed by Ramel Ross, and it is centered on these two characters, Elwood and Turner, who were sent to a reform school, which were apparently very popular, especially in the early 20th century. And this one in particular was modeled after the Dozier School for Boys, which was notorious for its abusive, horrible treatment towards the boys that were forced to go there, particularly and disproportionately towards the black boys that were sent to this reform school. Now, speaking of reinventing the wheel, this story is told through the first person perspective. So we're actually following Elwood, on his journey. And this is an incredibly gifted and talented boy. He's really, really smart, and he has prospects. He has, a great future ahead of him, until unfortunately he finds himself in a really tricky situation, in a car with another older gentleman who has, I think, like substances on him, and the police show up and it all goes to hell, leading to Elwood ending up in this quote reform school where his life just takes a downturn for the worse. He witnesses and experiences some of the most horrific treatment you will ever see depicted on screen. These reform schools that are run by these, white superior officers are horrible and tragic. I mean, all around, just terrible, terrible things in this community. But of course, you also have the added element of the segregation, because this is set in the Jim Crow era. And so you have a section of the reform school that is for its white attendees versus the black ones. And of course, there's a discrepancy in the resources and the facilities that are available to the black boys, where they're just in these like sheds that could barely survive a strong gust of wind, let alone a hurricane. And this is all in Florida, so weather is temperamental. And on top of being forced to endure this horrific environment and treatment, they're also forced to do hard labor on the fields and on the property of the reform school. And any actions deemed as misbehavior or delinquency or breaking the rules is faced with huge, horrible, horrifying punishments that even end up being life-threatening and life-ending. These reform schools were hell on earth for all of these kids, but especially the black ones. And real-life investigations carried out decades after the reform schools were closed have shown that there were mass graves at these sites. And when the remains of these poor boys were excavated and analysed, it was found that there was a hugely disproportionate number of black boys that were killed, tortured, maimed, and then ultimately buried in these sites. So honestly, this is a case of like, whenever you think things were bad, oh, it could always be worse. It could literally always be worse, because I had no idea that these reform schools even existed. And to see the story play out, the story of Elwood, who had this bright future, but then just one moment changed the trajectory of his life for the worse, and to see where he ended up, and so many others like him, was so heartbreaking. You also see the formation of the friendship between Elwood and Turner, which at times just feels, so warm and hopeful in this hopeless place. But also you have the complications where, sometimes Turner isn't a great friend to Elwood. Elwood is a little bit more naive and trusting, and he still has hope in the system, which is clearly horrifically broken and only functions against people like him instead of for them. But Turner is already jaded. He's been there longer. He has no hope, and he doesn't have much of a family to get back to, unlike Elwood. And so they clash in some ways as well. There are all these twists and turns that are pretty shocking in that story. But ultimately you have, this story of these two boys fighting for their survival in this place that is quite literally hell on earth. And not only that, but in the periphery you see the experiences of other boys, which also reflect real life events, and they're just as tragic and just as horrifying. So yes, Nickel Boys was a really hard watch, but it truly enlightened me to a topic that I never even knew about. And like I said, it was just one more thing to get angry about when it comes to, Black history in America and the horrible things that were done to these Black people that were almost forgotten in time. But this extremely heavy subject matter is carried exceptionally well by Ramel Ross's directing and writing. Like I said, he experiments with a first-person perspective here, which really works, especially in light of a twist that happens in the film. And so you end up with a different perspective at one point, but it's really, really effective, and it doesn't come across as a gimmick at all. It works seamlessly, both, you know, visually, but also thematically. But then aside from Ramel Ross's excellent directing and writing here, you have amazing cinematography. Many people called out the Academy for leaving this film out for the Best Cinematography award, because it definitely deserved to be nominated under that category, at least, okay? Incredibly stunning, beautiful, visually emotive film on top of everything else. And then you also have amazing performances by the boys who portray Elwood and Turner, but also by the legend and underrated queen of cinema, Miss Angelou Ellis Taylor, who portrays Elwood's grandmother, and she has a phenomenal turn in this film as well. So when it comes to Nickel Boys, this was truly a triumph of a historical drama. I had all kinds of emotions welling up inside me watching this film. It is really sad, it is really tragic, but it opened my eyes to a part of American history that I had no clue about. And funnily enough, it is loosely related to the Cillian Murphy film, These Small Things, that came out last year. And that film centered on the reform schools run by the Catholic Church for young girls in Ireland, and it also delved into the mistreatment that they faced and how it was so prevalent for so many decades, but it took way too long for people to actually do something about it. So interestingly enough, there are similar themes here of these poor young children back in the day facing all sorts of abuse and horrible treatment and even death, all because they didn't fit the mold of tradition, or they got into some trouble in the law and it ended up destroying their lives forever. Okay, so lastly, out of the good movies, we have a true international sensation in the form of K-pop Demon Hunters. Huntrix Hive Rise. Huntrix Hive Rise. Now, guys, this was cinema. This was cinema. One of the biggest regrets that I have for 2025 so far, for this channel at least, is not reviewing this film as the second that it landed on Netflix.com. I ended up waiting to watch it like a week or two. I forgot that it was dropping on Netflix, and then I heard people talking about it, talking about the soundtrack, talking about how good it was, and I was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to watch this because this is from the same studio that gave us the Spider-Verse movies. This is from Sony Animation. I don't understand what's going on in the Sony film division, because you turn this way and you have Madam Web, and then you turn that way and you have the Spider-Verse movies. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the quality control. I hope the quality control for their PlayStations isn't as bad as this. But regardless, I'm just so delighted that this film exists, that they churned this out, because it is a hit. Like I said, this is a global sensation in terms of the soundtrack, but also in terms of the film itself. Like, I am a fan. I am an absolute fan, and I'll just say this one time, because some of you will know that, hi, my name is Jean and I am the queen of shipping. I am currently captaining several different ships at once, okay? But I just got a new one. I just got a new ship to be the captain of, and that is Rumi and Ginu. I will make this happen. First of all, we will get a second film. And second of all, we will figure out what to do. We will figure out how we can get to the end game, which is Rumi and Ginu. Don't even worry about it. I'm on the case. Okay, let's just rewind for a second here and take a breath, because there is so much to dive into when it comes to this film. There is so much to love about it. First of all, the story here is immaculate. It is tight. I love the lore surrounding this film, the fact that you have this world where demons exist and they lurk in the darkness, and they usually live in like a different plane of reality, but they come out trying to take people's souls. And you have these hunters, these demon hunters, who, you know, are charged with taking them down and protecting this kind of protective layer around the living world called the Hun Moon. And so here come Huntrix, this girl group, this K-pop girl group, who are actually demon hunters in disguise, and they use their popularity and their spread of positivity and love for their fans to protect them from the emerging demons that are constantly lurking in the darkness, trying to steal people's souls. That is such an incredible elevator pitch. Ooh, that is, ooh. From the second that they explained this at the beginning of the film, I was locked in. I was like, oh, tell me more. Tell me what? Because if you know, okay, I'm a huge fan of mythology. Yes, I am. I'm a huge fan of these kinds of lore and storytelling. So the second that they started explaining this, I was like, yep, I was locked in. Yep, this is exactly down my alley. Like this, this was made for me. I will say I was a bit more excited about the mythology side of things than I was about the K-pop side of things. I am not a K-pop girly, I'm afraid. No, please, 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 don't come for me, don't come for me. I'm not a K-pop girly. I just don't connect with the genre or the industry. There's a lot of problematic aspects to it that I don't love. So I've never really been a K-pop stan like that. And that's the only part of this whole package that had me a little less excited. But I must say, even from my inexperienced ears, the bops were bopping. The bops were absolutely bopping. Like, I don't listen to a lot of K-pop, like I said, but even when I was watching this film, I was like, hang on, my toes are tapping, my head is bopping. Like, this is actually an insane soundtrack. So to see how it's like blown up internationally is not a surprise to me, because even from my inexperienced ears, I was like, oh yeah, they're onto some hits here. There's some incredible songs in this soundtrack. So on top of the compelling mythology, the story that they spun for this movie, they also had an exceptional soundtrack, which makes sense because we're dealing with K-pop artists, K-pop idols, I think they're called, right? Again, this is not my wheelhouse. I'm a Beyonce girly. I'm not this is a different hive from mine. But yeah, the idols were idling. And it definitely helps that they were able to back this story with an actually really good soundtrack to boot. But then on top of that, you also had really compelling characters. I absolutely loved Rumi. Yes, I did. I absolutely loved Rumi. I loved all of the girls, okay? And I also loved the Saja boys, not gonna lie. Particularly Jinu. I must say, the other Saja boys are kind of like in the background. They didn't really have a ton to do, you know, a lot to play with, but they functioned well as like a stereotypical, you know, K-pop boy band. They each had their USPs, you know, the traits that made them stand out in the group. They weren't particularly three-dimensional, but they worked as caricatures of, you know, members of K-pop boy bands. And even before K-pop was huge, like American and British boy bands as well had this aspect. So they worked really well as a unit, and it made sense why, you know, people starting to fall in love with them. And Jinu's idea of using Huntrix's tricks against them, you know, for the side of evil was very, very clever. But then we dive into Jinu's like backstory, and the fact that you get a little bit of it at first, and you're like, oh, like he's not so bad. Oh, poor Jinu. And then you get the rest, and you're like, oh, actually, he's a bit of a dickhead. He is a bit of a dickhead. But seeing Jinu and Rumi kind of bond over the course of the film was really kind of sweet. It lit a little fire in my dying heart. And that was only possible because Rumi was able to see things from the demon's perspective as a half demon herself. And the fact that that was a dark secret that she kept for herself, away from even her friends, her fellow hunters, was really deep. And again, that writing was so solid because it created a really good conflict within the character for her to go through this journey on. And as if all of that wasn't already impressive, you have the fact that this film looks absolutely spectacular. I mean, this has become a staple from Sony Animation of all studios. But yeah, their films have become known for looking incredible, and K-pop Demon Hunters is no exception. Like, I love the animation style here. It's definitely something that's drawing on, you know, Spider-Verse inspiration, but it's not a complete, you know, mimic or copy of Spider-Verse. It is its own thing. It does have a very different color palette for one, and it made for such an exciting and visually stimulating film. All in all, guys, Sony Animation did their huge one with K-pop Demon Hunters. I already had decent expectations after watching the trailer, but now I see a vision. Now I see a vision with sequels, with spin-offs, with a TV show perhaps. Like, I am all in on this world. I feel like the Huntress' manager. Like, I am all in. I am invested in this. I will run their social media campaign. I am the captain of the Jinu and Rumi ship. Thank you very much. I am completely and totally invested in this world. What a delightful film. It breaks my heart that it didn't get a theatrical release, because it absolutely deserved it. But yeah, hopefully in the future it will get one, because now people know that this is one of the best films to come out of 2025. Okay, so next up we have the TV shows. And despite the fact that this channel is called Jean's Movie Chats, Jean actually ends up spending a hell of a lot of time watching TV. Way more than movies, actually. So I have a much longer list for TV shows than I do movies, which is not very promising because I've been talking for about an hour now already, but we're going to speed run through these as well. Starting off with the list of TV shows that I've already very helpfully reviewed in separate videos. Here we have The Pit, Paradise, Forever, Adolescence, Daredevil Born Again, Handmaid's Tale Season 6, Ginny and Georgia Season 3, Ironheart, and The Bear Season 4. So that was the good. Those are the good TV shows that came out this year so far. They're not all of equal quality, but I would say that they're pushed over to the good side for sure. But now let's tune into some of the TV shows that I think are very good, but I haven't reviewed on my channel yet. Starting us off, we have Sandman Season 2, Volume 1. Volume 2 is going to be dropping in a few days' time, but so far I've only seen the first half of the second season of the show, and I am really sad about this whole situation. Honestly, I'm really sad because this is right up my alley. Remember when I just said that I like mythology and, like, you know, supernatural fantasy, stuff like that. But only certain kinds, funnily enough. I'm quite picky about my, you know, sci-fi fantasy stuff, because I don't really like Lord of the Rings or Wheel of Time or stuff like that. But this, like Sandman, I can really get behind. Like, I love this kind of stuff. And so I really am quite heartbroken that this is the final season of the show, because there's so much to enjoy about the Sandman series. I love the way that the Sandman series kind of incorporates all different kinds of mythology. This is a staple of the author's work, but the idea that you have, you know, Greek myth mixing in with, like, you know, Asian mythology as well. I wish they would delve into some, like, African mythology too. They did a bit of that in American Gods, but here it's not as present. But they kind of tap into all different kinds of cultures and kind of mesh them together, and, you know, retell these famous stories, which I really love and find quite compelling. And that's all enriched and heightened by the fact that the production here is really strong. Sandman has such great production. This show was made when Netflix was still spending money on its shows that aren't Stranger Things. And so it just looks so good. It looks so good. And the way they're able to, like, realize each of the different realms. Like, you have Dream's world, which is just crazy. Absolutely insane. And the special effects involved in, like, depicting his powers, the way that he's able to, like, manipulate minds and matter is so impressive. They have some, like, horrific visuals as well, which, you know, me, I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat, but I do appreciate, like, the ingenuity and the imagination in creating these horrifying monsters. So you have Dream's world, you have Hell, you even have Hades, which is a separate thing. You have all of his siblings as well, like Desire and Destiny, and who else? Delirium and Despair. I just love that. I love everything about the mythology here and how it's depicted, using these special effects, using creating these great production, design and costuming, hair, makeup, everything. Like, this is a very well produced show. I will say, out of the whole package that I do enjoy about Sandman, the writing is the most inconsistent part. I do think that it has some pacing issues where at times it does feel like a little bit of a slog. I understand the end point that they're trying to get to, and so do the writers clearly, but the journey there can feel a little bit, you know, laborious and a little bit tiresome and maybe even repetitive at times. So that's a weak point of Sandman, which isn't a great weak point to have when you're a TV show that is filled with lots of lore and mythology. But yeah, if they could just tighten up that story and maybe drop a couple of episodes, to be honest, so that everything feels really impactful and pacey, I think it would help. But that's not even a major issue when you have such a great production surrounding the show and also such incredible actors portraying these characters. Man, Tom Sturridge as Dream is like insane casting, insane, incredible cast. He is Dream. I can't even picture someone else portraying this character. Like, he is Dream. He is perfect for this role. It's incredible. This is like Cillian Murphy as Thomas Shelby levels of casting. Like, it's truly a match made in heaven. He is perfect in this role. And Dream is a very complex character. You know, I do love him, but that's not to say that I love everything that he does. He definitely makes some mistakes. He's so stubborn and so set in his ways. But this season shows how has actually slowly but surely been evolving as a character, despite being an endless kind of godlike figure, where they don't typically change or evolve much at all over time. So we're definitely seeing some growth in Dream, which is nice. And he's put through hell. Actually, he's put through a horrible situation because of his son Orpheus's actions, and also because he is trying to help his sister Delirium find their brother Destruction, and so he's taking on that journey. A lot happens already in the first half of this second season, so it's surprising how, you know, slow the pacing can sometimes feel. But anyways, a lot is happening, a lot is going on, and Dream is surprisingly changing a lot more than he thinks, and that's conveyed perfectly through Tom Sturridge's performance, which is very reserved, very held back, but he's able to convey little afflictions of emotions just from like small movements, you know, small tonal changes. It's really, really impressive. So all in all, guys, I am actually a huge fan of the Sandman show. I am looking forward to the second part of this second season, and I'm devastated that this is going to be the last that we see of this world, at least for a very, very long time. And as a final point, I just want to say, fuck Neil Gaiman for real, for absolute real. He is Beelzebub incarnate, and I'm glad that he is going down. It's just a shame that everyone who works on these incredible productions is going down with him as well. Okay, so next up we have Squid Game. Yes, I finally caught up on Squid Game season 3. I had been intending on doing a separate review for Squid Game, but I think it came out like the same week as a whole bunch of other stuff, and I just didn't end up having any time. And to be honest, I was kind of dragging my feet a little bit because I'm kind of over Squid Game at this point. Yeah, I'll say it. I was over it. By the time we reached season 3, I was like, right, it's time to wrap this up, okay? I kind of lost interest. I wasn't as invested in the premise anymore. And also, one thing that really irked me was seeing how Netflix.com took this show that was supposed to be a critique on capitalism, the impact of, you know, debt and people struggling with these financial circumstances to the point where they will put themselves through hell and humiliation to try and, you know, win some money so that they can pay off those debts. You know, this entire premise was a critique on capitalist society that leads to people being in such dire circumstances. And what did Netflix do when they saw how popular, when they saw how huge it became globally? They decided to capitalize on it. They decided to do that big one, their big capitalism, capitalize off of it, and literally create a real life reality TV show which put real life people, not characters from the show, real life people into similarly humiliating circumstances so they could win money to change their lives. And there were so many stories that came out about how these contestants were treated, and about how, you know, one of them had a panic attack because he really counted on that money. Like he was literally in a similar circumstance as the Squid Game characters from the fictional show. And then on top of that, you also had like the Mr. Beast Squid Game situation. Just seeing what spun out of this whole thing really put me off. And I just felt like we could have just ended things with that first season. It was a really strong, powerful message, and these companies have sullied that by trying to take advantage and capitalize off of this whole thing, because now it's just become yet another IP. There's even a Squid Game experience here in London where you can like play as the characters, and yeah, on the one hand it's fun, it might be exciting, whatever, but on the other hand I do think like the message, the point, the raison d'etre for this series has been completely lost and obstructed by more capitalism. But also, on top of all of the real world stuff that affected my enjoyment of this series, I just thought that the successive seasons weren't as strong as season one in general. I just felt like, you know, the creator clearly had some big bold ideas for season one and he put all of his heart and soul into it, but then season two came along and it was only half a story, and the first half wasn't even as compelling as the whole of season one. But then season three kind of completes everything and it still wasn't enough of a jump for me to be fully on board and invested. So yeah, by the time we got to the end of season three, where Kate Blanchett was smacking the hell of that American man in the gutter, I was fully out. I was like, yeah, it's time to tap out. It's time to tap out of this. I was glad that it was over. At least they were restrained enough to end it at season three and not drag it on for 10 more seasons. But Netflix, of course, is going to be developing some spin-offs, and they're going to continue milking this cow until it's completely dry. And I just find that to be extremely ironic and disappointing, but not surprising. Okay, so the next good season of the year was Poker Face season 2. That recently wrapped up with, I think, 12 episodes in total. That was pretty long, honestly. That was really, really long, but I actually did really enjoy season 2 of Poker Face. Now, this series, of course, stars Natasha Lyonne, who portrays Charlie Kale, who's this lady who has the innate ability to tell when somebody is lying. And this is essentially a modern day Columbo series where you have, you know, the case of the week format, and they're told in the inverse, where the murders happen at the beginning and then Charlie Hale walks in and she's like, what happened here? And then it turns out she was already in the background of the environment, working at a new place or living somewhere new. And so that's kind of the format of the series week after week. And it was famously created by Ryan Johnson, who's in his murder mystery bag with the Knives Out franchise. Now, in terms of season 2, I would say on the one hand it was a little bit weaker than season 1, because at least with season 1, Charlie had that motive to travel all across the country, not staying in any one place for too long because she was being chased down by the mob. And so that's, you know, why she ended up in these crazy kooky scenarios where a murder would take place. Whereas in season 2, the mob is no longer chasing after her, and so she's kind of just like being easy breezy across the country for no particular reason other than she's trying to like find herself or discover what she likes. And she's talking to this mysterious person who's on the radio, who's like giving her all these kind of advice about what she can do to help her on that journey. But it's less of a pressing need or demand for her to be in these situations. So a lot of the times it comes across as a bit more convenient and, you know, kind of lazy and repetitive in comparison to how it was set up in season 1. But once you get over how repetitive and convenient the whole setup is, I do find these episodes to be quite enjoyable. I think it's a good show to have have in the background. I think there are some pretty strong episodes across the season as well, particularly the one with Cynthia Erivo, where she portrays those triplets, quadruplets, however many there were. But that was fun. That was a really strong episode. I also liked the episode with Aquafina and her grandma, who was in a rent-controlled apartment in New York. That really stood out to me as a Londoner. Okay, those housing prices, that really stood out to me. But yeah, there were some standout episodes across the season, and I just really enjoyed catching it week after week. Now, this all led up to a season finale that was pretty decent as well. I didn't love it as much as the standout episodes across the season, but I think it did a pretty good job of like wrapping up the season 2 storylines, giving us an action-packed adventure, car chase sequences, and the lot. So all in all, I really enjoyed season 2 of Poker Face. I do hope we get a season 3. It's not one of my favorite shows or anything, but I just really like having it in the background, and it's something to look forward to week after week as the new episodes drop. And also, Natasha Lyonne is really likable in this role. She's so great as Charlie Kale. I really do enjoy her here. Okay, so next up we have a TV show that recently broke my heart into a million tiny pieces. I will never, ever forgive HBO Max for what they did to me here. But the next show that I want to talk about is Duster. Guys, HBO cancelled it. They cancelled it. Why would they do first Lovecraft Country, now this? Actually, no, first Lovecraft Country, then Chaos, then a whole bunch of other shows, now this. This is just the latest in a line of shows that Jean loves that she's not allowed to have. I'm just really upset. I'm actually so upset. I'm so upset by the cancellation of Duster. It's such a good show, guys. It's such a good show. And they did nothing to promote it. They did nothing to push this show. I barely even knew about it. If I wasn't on Twitter, I would have never even heard of it. It's just so heartbreaking. But guys, the show was so good. And they cancelled it. They took it away from me. Like, what am I supposed to do? But let me just compose myself. Let me just get some decorum. In case you don't know, Duster is a HBO crime thriller / drama series set in the 1970s, and it is centered on this character called Nina Hayes, who is portrayed by Rachel Hilson, who is incredible, amazing in this role. Damn it, HBO when I catch you. Anyways, Nina is the very first black female FBI agent, and she's been sent to Arizona to solve this case surrounding Ezra Saxton, who is a huge mob boss in the area. And he's portrayed by Keith David, by the way, who is just so incredible, so iconic. And his voice, whenever I hear him speak, I just think of the Shadow Man, okay? But that is fitting because here he's also a bad guy, and Nina is trying to take him down, not only because she has a lot to prove as the first black female FBI agent, but also because it turns out that Saxton was responsible for her father's death, and so it's a personal thing for her as well. She has a vendetta against him, and she wants to take this man down by legitimate means, and so she's building up a case. She's building up a case against him, but this one is tricky because Saxton has friends in high places, and so she turns to an informant by the name of Jim Ellis, who's portrayed by Josh Holloway, who is so cool. Like, why must they take everything away from me? He is so cool, but she manages to get Jim on board after telling him, or rather suggesting to him, that Saxton may have been responsible for his brother's death as well. And so Jim becomes compelled to find out the truth and starts to work alongside Nina to take Saxton down. But luckily, she's not all alone. She does have some friends, including her partner and the man who was supposed to be her future husband, god damn it, Native American FBI agent R1, and they work together to solve this case, and it brings them all these different twists and turns along the way. And in the meantime, you have danger afoot as Saxton continues on business as usual, as well as exploring a big old deal with the Russians at the height of the Cold War. So chaos is afoot from all different angles. So as I hope you can see, this show had so much potential, guys. Like, this show This show was so good, particularly towards the end. And so I was truly heartbroken, devastated, throwing up, sickened when I heard that HBO was cancelling it after one season. Like, I'm truly not allowed to have nice things, really. Like, Jean is not allowed to have nice things, to enjoy anything. Because the second that she enjoys something, it gets cancelled. I will never forgive Netflix for cancelling Chaos last year, and I will never forgive HBO for cancelling Lovecraft Country and now Duster. Okay guys, now that I've gone through the best movies and TV shows of the year so far, it's time to dive into some of the bad and the mid. Now, fortunately for me, although perhaps unfortunately for you, I don't have too much on this because a long time ago I made the decision to not waste my time watching bad shit. I really do hate wasting time on nonsense, on literal garbage, and so I tend to just avoid bad movies and TV shows. Like, I really just can't be sitting through this stuff. I'm so sorry. And so as fun as it is for me to rant and ramble about terrible stuff, I'm not going to sit through a whole bunch of bad TV shows or movies to begin with, so I don't actually have a ton in these categories. So when it comes to the bad movies of the year so far, I only have 3, and out of the 3 I've already done reviews on 2 of them. So the first one up is Captain America Brave New World. Guys, I don't know what happened. I was so disappointed in how Captain America turned out. I didn't have high hopes after having seen the trailer and hearing about what it was about, but it ended up even falling below that very low bar. Like, I just really wasn't a fan of the direction that they took this character. I won't get into it too much because I already have a review on it, but yeah, unfortunately this falls into the bad section of the 2025 releases so far. Next up though, we have an even worse situation, unfortunately, with Snow White. This Snow White remake was really bad. really bad. Oh, and I feel so bad because Rachel Zegler, I feel, was perfectly cast in this role, and she's so talented, but everything around her was just like a mess. Like, it was an absolute disaster. I really did not like this film, and I tend to be quite positive towards these live action remakes. A lot of people hate them, but I'm a fan of good movies, guys, you know, regardless of where they fall. I'm a fan if it's good, but if it's bad, then I have to call it as I see it, and this was a bit of a disaster. But now the third movie on this list is one that I haven't done a review for, and it's one that I had no intention of ever watching, but I ended up catching it, and so I can safely say it was just as bad as I thought it would be. It's the Minecraft movie. It's the Minecraft movie. What are we doing here? What are we? I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say, guys. And the fact that this movie made so much money, like it made almost $1 billion. Like, it's on 950 or so million worldwide. I'm not surprised because Minecraft is a big property, right? Like, it's a big game, it's hugely popular, has been for years now. So I'm not surprised that it made a ton of money just based on IP, but based on quality, based on everything else, and admittedly, I'm not a huge Minecraft girly, so I have no skin in the game. Although I will say there was one evening where I watched some Minecraft gameplay for like a couple of hours, and I happened to get to know a couple of bits and bobs about the game just from that. Literally from those 2 hours, I was like, okay, I'm starting to understand the game. I started to see the appeal, actually. Like, I was kind of like, maybe I should start playing Minecraft. And so yeah, like, I did get a little bit of exposure to the game before watching the Minecraft movie, and I will say that definitely helped. That definitely helped with my experience because I was familiar with the references, right? And the chicken jockey, like, it actually... That doesn't mean that this film is good. That doesn't mean that this film is good. Like, it just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart when I see excellent projects like Duster and Better Man not getting the love that they deserve, only to see projects like this, like Minecraft, like the Minecraft movie, just excel. Like, literally just go the distance, make almost $1 billion, and have such a huge cultural impact, even though it doesn't deserve it. It just, it pisses me off to no end. So yeah, it's in the bad category, and deservedly so. But then lastly, we have the mid, and this is a little bit less predictable, right? Because you go in thinking that it might be good, and then what? It's mid. So I have a few movies here, all of which I've already reviewed, and that is Lilo and Stitch, definitely mid. That was supposed to be a straight to Disney Plus movie, and it looks and feels that way. Okay, but it ended up getting a theatrical release after the studio saw, you know, the huge success of Moana 2, and now look where we are. The movie made $1 billion. I don't know what to say. It feels like Disney's being rewarded for just doing the worst stuff. And in the meantime, you have another Disney movie, Thunderbolts, that was actually good. That was actually excellent, very well written, very well executed, very well acted. And that made no money at all. It made a third. It made a third of Lilo and Stitch. But Lilo and Stitch, this movie that is like mid at best, has reached the $1 billion mark. Like, it's the first movie of 2025 to make $1 billion, which, by the way, tells you a lot about the state of the box office these days in this post-COVID era. But I digress. This is the film that did it. This is the one. And then the next mid movie on my list is Mickey 17. Although I lean towards Mickey 17 being a good movie. Like, I think it was decent. I think it was really good. I think the main reason why it kind of leans towards mid for me is just that feeling of disappointment, because this is the first movie that Bong Joon-ho has done since Parasite. And so, you know, stakes and expectations were quite high, perhaps unfairly so. But as a result, you know, having seen the film, it just felt a little bit flat for me, and it was pretty disappointing that it didn't kind of reach anywhere near the levels that Parasite did. So yeah, I'll put it in mid to good. But then we move on to the mid shows. The mid TV shows that I checked out so far this year. First up is The Last of Us Season 2, a huge drop off in quality in comparison to Season 1. Still some really good standout episodes, but overall it was just really disappointing. And again, it's that like expectations versus reality will kill you every time, because I had very high expectations for The Last of Us coming out of Season 1, which was one of the best shows that HBO has ever made, but then circling back with this, I was like, oh, this is okay. There's some parts where I'm like, oh, I see the vision, and then oh. Next we have The Residents. I touched on this in my Emmy nominations reaction video. Basically, I found the whole show to be quite mid. The mystery itself wasn't compelling enough to warrant all of that drama and pomp and circumstance, and to make matters worse, it went on for way too long. I think the series was like 7 episodes or something. It felt like 17. It was just way too long of a show, and like I said, there wasn't a lot of substance to it to kind of warrant that length. And then the next mid show we have is Murderbot from Apple TV Plus. This was a background show. I was barely paying any attention to this show. I tried to at first, you know. I think it debuted with 2 episodes, and so for those 2 episodes I really did try to be locked in and pay attention to what was going on. But by the end of the 2nd episode, I knew that this just wasn't gonna be for me, which is a shame, because I was actually really excited for this series when I saw the trailer. And I do think that Alexander Skarsgård is eerily good in this role as the murder bot. I think perfect casting on that front, but the story just wasn't interesting to me, I'm afraid. Like, I just did not care. I didn't care at the end of the day. And it seems to have been very well received, and people seem to really like it, as is the case for a lot of Apple TV Plus series actually. But for some of them I do enjoy, and others I don't. And for this one, it was just like, nah, I won't be tuning in for a 2nd season, which, by the way, this series is getting. It's getting a 2nd season. But you know what it's you know what isn't getting a 2nd season? My beloved Duster. Oh, I'm so upset. But okay guys, that's it from me. Woo! I've been talking for a very, very long time, but now that I told you guys my thoughts on the good, the bad, and the mid of 2025 so far, it's time for you guys to let me know what you've been checking out and what you think of the releases of this year so far down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. Ooh, I really, really appreciate it. It's been ages. And I will see you guys in the next one.